Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be recapping our reviews from the month of December 2023. This video will feature three things: a discussion of our favorite coffee this month, as well as any honorable mentions, our upcoming coffee of the month, and anything else pertaining to this channel that we feel is worth discussing or addressing. So let's go ahead and get started with our honorable mentions. And as always, these are in order of when we reviewed them on this channel. And first up, we have the same coffee from two different coffee roasters, and it is the Pepeyontox Dater Wash Processed Ecuador from Thankfully Coffee out of Auburn, Alabama, and then from September Coffee Company based out of Ottawa, Ontario. And at this point, I feel like there's very little left to be said about this coffee that hasn't already been said, as I reviewed it for the first time last year from Manhattan Coffee Roasters, and I enjoyed it so much that it ended up being my top coffee from the entirety of 2022. And since then, I've sought it out from any coffee roaster that is carrying it, including these two versions of it, as it continues to offer a very sugary sweet profile, with each one offering something a little unique as well, as was the case with the version from Thankfully Coffee being a little bit more on the citric side of things, while the version from September was a bit more reminiscent of my favorites, being the Manhattan as well as Apollon's Gold version of this coffee. So as long as coffee roasters continue to release this coffee, it is going to be something that does appeal to me, as it continues to remain one of my favorite coffees that we have ever reviewed on this channel. Unfortunately, for the time being, neither of these two coffee roasters still have this coffee, but I feel like it's a matter of time before another prominent coffee roaster is carrying this one. All right, next up, we have the winner of our 2023 Cafe Box Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series, and that is the Gesha 58WX, the wash process Panama from Hofea Circular out of Gothenburg, Sweden. And this one right here, while it was a very heavy favorite going into that entire series, the fact that it won still deserves some credit, as this coffee offered everything I was expecting from a washed Panamanian Gesha from Hofea Circular. That, of course, being some immense clarity, as well as that bergamot citric-like aspect to it. In addition to that, some bonus herbality, giving it a little bit more depth. And while this one wasn't necessarily my favorite washed Panamanian Gesha that we've ever reviewed from Hofea Circular, it seemed to check all the boxes in terms of what I was looking for from one of their Panamanian Geshas, which has been a consistent theme with their coffees in general, as they do offer immense clarity as well as intensity, sweetness, and just essentially a lot of the depth that I'm hoping for when it comes to just all of their coffees in general. So massive credit to them on the consistency that they continue to offer with their coffees. And I checked Hofea Circular's website before this video, and I didn't see this coffee available. That's not to say that they won't release it in the future, as in the past they've released some of the coffees featured in the Cafe Box Advent Calendar after it had featured in the Advent Calendar itself. That being said, they do have a different washed Panamanian Gesha from the same producer. It is the Black Pearl, which is also a very interesting sounding washed Panamanian Gesha from this coffee roaster. All right, next up we have the runner-up from the Cafe Box Advent Calendar series, and that is the Yangoi Wash Processed Kenya from Morgon Coffee Roasters out of Gothenburg, Sweden. And unlike the Panamanian Gesha, this one right here wasn't even on my radar going into the entire series, as it wasn't even on my radar for that part 4 video. And then it really seemed to surprise me and surpass all of my expectations, as it performed so well in that video that it took first place and actually pushed the Panamanian Gesha for my favorite coffee from that entire Advent Calendar. A lot of people know I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of wash-processed Kenyan coffees, and Panamanian Geshas are my favorite coffee in the entire world. So the fact that a Kenyan coffee was able to push a Panamanian Gesha for that top spot really says a lot about this one. And I keep harping on the fact that I went into that video knowing that that Ethiopian coffee was supposed to be a very peach-forward coffee, only to have this coffee be even more peach-forward, more fruit-forward, offered tremendous sweetness and clarity, making it one of my favorite coffees that we've reviewed from, or had from that entire Advent Calendar, one of my favorite Kenyan coffees we've had the entire year, which goes along the lines of my experiences with this coffee roaster, as a lot of the Kenyan coffees I've had from them in the past have actually greatly surpassed my expectations. So this is another example of it. This coffee is still available at the time that we're recording this video as well. And that takes us to my favorite coffee from this month, and that is the Jansen 107 Wash Processed Panama from Apollon's Gold out of Tokyo, Japan. And this one I actually picked up while we were out in Tokyo, as the owner of Apollon's Gold called this one a game-changing coffee. And this one lived up to some sky-high expectations, as it offered the big four that I was looking for from any Panamanian geisha. That, of course, being immense clarity, as it's one of the cleanest coffees we'd reviewed this entire year. Wonderful sweetness and insanely floral forward profile, as it offered one of the most floral cups we'd ever experienced, especially in terms of the jasmine aspects. Apologize for the dog in the background. And then, of course, the fruit forward profile that we were experiencing from this one, as that gave it a little bit more depth as well. And that's everything that I'm hoping for when it comes to a Panamanian geisha. And truth be told, it is one of my favorite Panamanian geishas that we've reviewed on this channel in quite a bit, as even with some really high expectations, I have to give massive credit to this coffee roaster that I feel like has improved a lot over the last year, as this one was another shining example of the wonderful things that they are able to do with this coffee. Probably my favorite Jansen coffee that we've ever reviewed too. So massive credit to the producer, the roaster, everybody that was involved in this coffee. And this one, unfortunately, is no longer available. That takes us to our coffee of the month. So let's go ahead and introduce it. It's the Abel Salinas, a wash-processed Ecuador from Counterculture based out of Durham, North Carolina. And this one won a very tight poll, as it barely squeaked by the Guatemalan coffee from Intelligentsia Coffee Roaster out of Chicago, Illinois. Say was offering a slightly different version of this coffee from the same producers. This one is also an Abel Salinas, another Típica Mejorado coffee from Ecuador. And that leads me into discussing what happened with that poll before we actually discuss this coffee, because I really want to know what happened with you guys, directly from you guys, because I was really surprised to see how closely that Intelligentsia coffee pushed this one, as it was just a couple of votes on both the Instagram as well as the YouTube poll. So I really want to know why you guys were so interested in that Guatemalan coffee, because when I was coming up with the coffees for the Coffee of the Month poll, I said, okay, the Blue Bottle one sounds interesting, and then the Stumptown one, I mean, it sounds fine, but I was really surprised how well that Intelligentsia coffee performed. So I want to know if it's a couple of things, and me and my buddy Zach came up with a couple of theories. The first of which being maybe some slight Ecuador burnout, as we have reviewed a lot of Ecuadorian coffees on this channel. Let me know if that might be the case, as this one really appealed to me. I was definitely going for this one to win, and I was very happy that it won because it was another Mejorado coffee. But outside of that, I continue to kind of wonder if maybe we are reviewing a few too many Ecuadorian coffees, as the results I'm getting from them have been tremendous, but at the same time I can understand maybe a little bit of burnout if we continue to review the same origin over and over. Or is it the fact that you guys are just really interested in us reviewing something from Intelligentsia, or maybe specifically that Guatemalan coffee? And if it's either of those two things, then please let me know, because I will do my best then to review something from Intelligentsia, especially if they do release something that sounds very promising and exciting as well. So I'm keeping that in mind. Just let me know what you guys think, as I was still very surprised at how well that coffee performed in that poll, even though it did lose out to this one. But circling back to this one, yes, as soon as I saw it released from Say, I knew I wanted to purchase it and try it out. And I've actually had a cup from both of these coffee roasters, well, both of these versions right now, and I've been pretty impressed by them. I think it's a very nice coffee. It offers that sweetness that I was hoping for from both of them, as they're one of the sweetest coffees I've ever had from Counterculture and from Say, so that's really promising in that sense. Last I checked, both of these versions were still available, though that might have changed recently, especially with the Say version. Other than that, yeah, I mean, this is the coffee I was definitely going for, so I'm happy it barely squeaked out a victory, but I'm still kind of perplexed as to why the results were as close as they were. And that leads us into our final notes, and I just have a couple of them. So the first thing, which I'm sure a lot of people are curious about, is that the grinder did arrive, but unfortunately I haven't had much of an opportunity to use it, as we've been focusing on the Cafe Box Advent Calendar series. So hopefully I'll have some time here in the near future to start working on it and testing some coffees with it, because I really want to get that kind of calibrated and aligned so I can start using that as my main coffee grinder for all of the reviews from this point going forward. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. I think once the transition has been set, then from that point I'm going to say, okay, this is the update in the Coffee of the Month video, and from this point going forward, every coffee that we're reviewing with that specific grinder. And then the other thing I needed to discuss is, well, our next video that's coming out tomorrow is going to be our SK Coffee review, because that was our Coffee of the Month for November. But obviously things got a little pushed back with the Cafe Box Advent Calendar series. I wanted to get it in before the end of the year, so that will be our final review of the year. And then that transitions into our big end of the year list as on December 31st. And then January 1st, we're going to do our top 10 coffees of 2023 list, with December 31st being coffees 10 through 5, as well as the honorable mentions, 10 through 6, as well as the honorable mentions. And then January 1st being 5 through 1. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you guys have any guesses as to what our top coffee of the entire year might be, then please let me know as well, because I have that much set in stone. It's kind of ironing out the rest of the list and where I want to place the rest of the coffees that I'm going to really need to think about before we post that video. But yeah, I think that's kind of it, everything I have for this one. So just let me know on any of those things I had mentioned in this video. As far as that goes, I'm going to leave it at that. If you guys are enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a recap of our reviews from the month of December 2023. Thank you for watching.